We have been discussing the 3 factors out of the 9 factors for the sharpening of controlling faculties. The first 3 ones, namely seeing the dissolution of mind-body objects, and in that one makes sure of working carefully and continuously. These 3 things are very important. If only we are grounded in these 3 factors, we are bound to progress day by day with the power of aiming and driving force. Our knowing mind will be concurrent with the object of attention, leading to the practice of Satipatthana in accordance in the spirit of Satipatthana. The noting mind will be anchored on the object of meditation, and as the noting mind is continuous, as much as the noting mind is continuous, one is bound to deepen one's concentration. And initially, we have had the practice of aiming, taking an aim at the object. So you are bound to see the natural characteristics of Bhava. You will become familiar with the natural characteristics of the objects. And as much as you are familiar with these objects, you are bound to cultivate knowledge, seeing the true nature of mind and body. Thus, you will be developing Viriya Sati Samadhi, and because you are knowing the truth with your own personal experience, you come to acceptance. Because you know it through your own experience, you know that it is correct. So in this way, you are said to have awakened your faith and confidence, coming to acceptance. Your faith and confidence arises, is uplifted, and this faith and confidence which has been awakened is developed with the practice. Such is sharpening the faculties, so that your faculties will become clear and pure, clear-cut. As much as your faith and confidence is sharpened, you will wish to advance with more zeal, strong desire to undertake the practice. You become energetic, that is viriya. As much as you exert energy, you are bound to activate your mindfulness and deepen your concentration, which is quite obvious. So, by understanding the benefits of the practice on a theoretical basis, thus awakening your faith and confidence, you are developing it with the practice in order to see mind and body and their conditionality. So you come in stages, you are cultivating knowledge in stages, so that you come to acceptance. And there will be more and more acceptance. There will be more and more mindfulness, and more deepened concentration. Such is sharpening the faculties. As you note respectfully and carefully and continuously, you will not take many days to realize the benefit of the practice. You will know it by yourself. Because you are not noting properly, you are missing the objects, or overshooting the objects, you are not knowing the true nature of the objects. Now you come to know the true nature of the objects with your own personal experience. You come to acceptance. Such is faith, saddha. And in this way, you are developing it. Such is sharpening faculties. In working suitably, in working respectfully and carefully, and noting the object, one must be able to do it in a suitable manner. Everything must be smooth and conducive to the practice. Otherwise, there will be no benefit. So as the 4th factor of sharpening the faculties, the text has given this expression, one must make sure of working suitably. Sabbaya Kiriyaya Sampaditi. In seeing the dissolution of mind, body, objects in the course of the practice, and in practicing to make sure of working suitably and respectfully, respectfully and continuously, one needs to do it suitably. Only then you will accomplish the meditative insight knowledge, bhavana jnana. So this suitability is very important. For instance, when you want to sharpen a knife, you use a grinding stone, a special grinding stone, for this purpose. And then that is not enough. One needs some lubricant to be applied. The simplest lubricant is water. Sometimes use oil and so on. And then you need to apply energy in order to sharpen the knife. So you need this stone, grinding stone, special grinding stone. You need to apply energy. And also you need to keep the knife in a proper position. The position must be correct. Then with strong zeal, not in a half-hearted manner, but in a whole-hearted manner, you grind the knife on the grinding stone, applying these lubricants now and again as you need it. So if you do that, every second of the time, you are bound to sharpen this knife. Slowly, the knife will become sharpened and clear-cut, that's for sure. So such example has been given in the text. Such is known as making sure of working suitably. Sabbaya, Kiriyaya, Sampaditi. There are 7 suitabilities. So it is not just practicing respectfully, carefully. You need to do it in a way, in a suitable way to be conducive to the practice, leading to the practice of meditation respectfully and continuously. Out of these 7 suitabilities, the first one is the suitability of abode, avasa sabbaya, namely the place should be suitable for you, such as buildings, trees, and so on. This is the first of the suitabilities. The second suitability is gochara sabbaya, suitability of resort, especially for the monks. It should be suitable for alms round. That is, the monks can go on alms round to the village, alms village, back and forth within 1 or 1.5 hours. That should be suitable for the monks. And this gochara sabbaya, the suitability of the sort, as the monks are concerned with that. In a sense, as for all yogis, what is their suitability of the sort? They should understand what is suitable, what is not suitable. Anything which will not cause you to cultivate mindfulness and concentration, or cause to cultivate insight knowledge, bhavana jnana, should be considered as not suitable. And reverse is true. That is, any place which is suitable for you in cultivating mindfulness, deepening concentration and insight knowledge is considered suitable for you. For instance, although outside of in ordinary life, you may be, man and woman may be talking about things of mutual interest. However, when they come to the practice in the meditation center, they are not looking for such things. They are looking for Dhamma. So they should do it respectfully and note continuously. They should not have any regard for other things except the practice of meditation. Not to please oneself, or not to indulge in conversations, they should be able to renounce, at least temporarily, in the course of the practice. If you want something priceless thing, something priceless, you should pay for it. You won't get it free. The more priceless a substance is you want to get, the more you have to pay. So, such should be understood. And as for the monks, they should understand what are the villages, places of the sort which are not suitable for them, not to cultivate mindfulness and concentration. If it is not suitable, then this you are not applying, you are not conforming to Gochara Sabhaya, suitability of resort. And as for the third one, Phassa Sabhaya, suitability of conversation. The only conversation, the only communication you should have in the course of the practice is to listen to the Dhamma and also report to the meditation teachers your observations and experience. You should avoid especially things which are concerning with lust and craving, and not ordinary village talks, but to indulge in only Dhamma talk. Listen to the Dhamma as and when necessary, and if you have something to talk to, you should talk to the teachers, to whom you report your observations and experiences. And as for the rest, it is better that you don't indulge in any conversation, and even if you have to talk to the teachers and so on, that should be done with limits, not in an unlimited manner. Such is the practice of suitability of conversation. If you have reason to do it, you should do it quickly. You should talk, you should speak quickly. That is very important, and such is again the suitability of conversation. So those of you who cherish the Dhamma lovers, should make use of the time to good advantage. This is very important. Even the time available to you is not too long. The time is limited, and the time is priceless, is valuable, and not to misuse it, not to waste it. You must put it to good use. And you have to be very careful, especially in indulging in conversation. It's better that you abstain from conversations. Otherwise, it's tantamount to disturbance not only to you but to the surrounding. And if other people see you talking, they will underestimate you. They will tend to blame you for indulging in conversations. And also it will be tantamount to not loving the Dhamma, not cherishing the Dhamma. That's why the Buddha has said that while you are practicing in the realm of the practice, while you are practicing in order to overcome these defilements in a battle, to fight out these defilements to the point of no return on a full-time basis, one must be careful in conversations. Otherwise, one will not be continuous in the practice of meditation. Not that you don't have to talk at all, but you abstain from indulging in unnecessary conversations. If you have to say, of course you say it, but put a limit to that. If not, there will be no end to conversation. You will be saying something and the other person will be replying, and the other person will be saying and you will be replying, and so on, so that there will be no end to this conversation. And then if you, on top of that, if you enjoy this conversation, it will be more difficult, because you have to, this will be tantamount to wasting your valuable time. So some yogis are talking, and if they don't have to talk somewhere, they will go elsewhere and talk. So it is tantamount to not respecting this center, not respecting the Dhamma, not respecting ourselves or himself, not respecting the others. So even if you have to say, you must do it as minimum as possible when it comes to unavoidable conversations. It is better that you avoid. And when you have to say something, you do it mindfully, like mindful of what you're going to talk about and mindful of what you are saying. Then it will be tantamount to listening to the Buddha or behaving in accordance with the instructions of the Buddha. And you'll be practicing respectfully and carefully in order to cultivate concentration and knowledge. And the next one is known as suitability of person, Puggala Sappaya. While you are practicing in order to overcome, like fighting a battle, to subdue and overcome the defilements, one should avoid worldly conversations, or conversations which are not connected with the practice. And you should abstain from such persons who tend to talk worldly things. Even if that person is very friendly in ordinary life, you should not associate by through conversation while you are doing the practice, because it will not be very helpful to you. You should abstain from such conversation or such contact, which is very important. Even if the conversation is really necessary, you should put a limit to that. Sometimes you may have some occasion to talk to another person in a very important manner concerning the practice, then you may do so, especially reporting your observations and experiences to your meditation teachers. And also when listening to the Dhamma talk, all these things have to be done with limit, and especially should abstain from talkative persons who indulge in worldly conversations. So such is Puggala Sappaya, suitability of person, which is very important. And this will be not only good for you, but it will be good for the others. And when you are doing certain movements, like standing or sitting, changing postures, or going to drink water and things like that, you should do it gently and mindfully, so as not to disturb others. Such is also Puggala Sappaya, suitability of persons. In this way, you are having regard to each other or to one another, which will be very helpful. So, from ordinary worldly point of view, if two persons are indulging in conversation, they may be enjoying this conversation, but it will be tantamount to disturbance to the practice and to the surrounding. So if you are indulging in conversations, your practice will be disrupted, it will spill over, it will be wasted, and you'll have to start all over again. Especially those of opposite sex, if they indulge in conversation, it will be worse. It will be like a magnet pulling one another. And that's why here men and women are kept separate in sitting meditation, so that there will be no magnetic attraction between the two opposite poles. Like they are saying in physics, like repels like, and the other way around. If it's unlike dissimilar thing, they will attract one another. If one cannot renounce, at least temporarily, these worldly pleasures, then you'll be missing or you'll be losing the real pleasure or happiness that you can get, which is good in itself, unrelinquishable, and which is assured happiness. And if you cannot renounce the sensual pleasures, worldly pleasures, then you will be missing, you will be losing this assured happiness. Although some people from some regions of the world have their fancy food, the food which is specific for them, here we are not able to do that, but we have to do something as best as we can, which is suitable for everyone. Food including drinks, soft drinks and so on. All these things are kept as suitable as possible. So, although they may not get, or some people may not get the best food that they used to take at home, the food is considered suitable for everyone, so that they can practice without any trouble. And in the foreign retreat centers, some yogis have to do service in turn, like washing the dishes and so on. Here, they don't have to do anything. All that they do is just pick up the tray and serve for themselves. In Buddha's time, the people, the organizers of the retreat, had to look for suitabilities, such as Gochara Sabhaya, suitability of resort, Pogala Sabhaya, suitability of persons, and Bhojana Sabhaya, suitability of food. And they make it suitable, if it's not suitable. And the very glaring example, famous example, is given in the case of the landlady called Madhika Mata in a village where some monks are practicing meditation. They were not getting the food that they wanted. Like some monks may want sour things, they are not getting it. Some monks might want sweet things, but they are not getting sweet ones. So that this lady saw it with her supernormal powers, that they are not cultivating any knowledge, they are not gaining any insight because of the lack of suitable food. So she was able to provide suitable food. For instance, those who like sour things are given sour food, those who like bitter food are given bitter food, and so on. In this way, because she saw it with the supernormal powers and provided such food for the suitability of the monks, they were able to gain insight in a very, in a short time. Of course, in those days she was able to do that, but here we cannot do. We are not Madhika Mata. We do not know what you like, so we provide everything on the table. So you pick your choice. If it's sour, you take sour. All sorts of things in front of you, on the table in front of you. So we are doing it for the purpose of Bhojana Sabhaya, suitability of food, as much as we can. The sixth suitability is Udu Sabhaya, the suitability of weather conditions, heat and cold. Here at this time of the year, it is neither too cold nor too hot. We're going to say it is moderate. And of course, we cannot make it too hot or too cold to your advantage. However, if you are feeling cold, we have provided enough blankets to warm yourself. And if you feel hot, there's enough water to bathe, or to take shower. And in this way, you can adjust yourself for the suitability of weather conditions, Udu Sabhaya. In this way, the first 7 and the last suitability is suitability of posture or postures. Iriyabhata Sabhaya. In the beginning, the yogis, the most suitable posture is sitting meditation. And the Buddha has given this instruction to sit cross-legged with upper body upright, which is most suitable for the beginners, so that in sitting meditation, you don't have to exert too much energy, so that you can cultivate concentration very easily. In a walking meditation, you have to exert energy, more energy. Here, by sitting, you can balance these two things, namely energy and concentration. So it's most suitable for beginners. And then when you're moving, you don't have to move too much while sitting. Such is Iriyabhata Sabhaya, the suitability of posture. Of course, you don't sit all the time. You will walk after sitting for 1 hour in turn to stretch your limbs and be suitable in the practice of Iriyabhata Sabhaya. In this way, this will be in accordance, these 7 suitabilities are in accordance with the exposition, and they will be conducive to the practice of meditation. So as Dhamma lovers, if you gain these 7 suitabilities, you should be able to practice respectfully, carefully, and if you can do that, you're bound to cultivate insight knowledge in a few days' time. That's all for today.